The Battle of the Convergence Point became the stuff of legends throughout the galaxy. In less than 18 hours, the mighty Scar hegemony had been reduced from a galaxy-threatening invasion force to scattered groups of survivors fleeing toward the galactic rim. The biomechanical empire that had consumed entire star systems fell apart when faced with human military technology, designed specifically to counter their advantages. Fleet Admiral Youngsu stood on the bridge of his flagship Incheon Rising, watching the final stages of the Scar collapse. His tactical display showed the systematic destruction of the last Devourer strongholds. Each enemy position was eliminated with surgical precision by weapons that seemed to predict and counter every defensive measure the aliens attempted. "Sir, the last Scar command ship is requesting terms for surrender," reported his communications officer. "Commander Sujin," Youngsu nodded thoughtfully. "Inform them that surrender will be accepted only with complete disarmament and withdrawal to their home systems. Any attempt to rebuild their military capability will result in the permanent elimination of their species." The message was transmitted on all frequencies, ensuring that every surviving Scar commander understood the new reality. Humanity's demonstration of power had been absolute and undeniable. The galaxy's most feared military force had been crushed in hours by an enemy they had never even known. Existed news of the human victory. Spread across council space faster than light speed. Communications could carry it. On every world, beings gathered around communication devices to hear reports of their salvation. The mysterious humans of Earth had appeared like mythical heroes to save galactic civilization from certain destruction. But with salvation came a price that many species were only beginning to understand. 3 days after the last Scar ship surrendered, the Galactic Council convened for what would be the most important session in their 300-year history. The Great Chamber of Harmony's Edge was packed with delegates, observers, and media representatives from across the galaxy. For the first time in over 20 years, the blue metal chair reserved for Earth would not be empty. Director Sang-woo entered the chamber with a delegation of human officials, military commanders, and technical specialists. His arrival caused a stir throughout the assembled crowd. This was the face of the species that had just demonstrated the most overwhelming military superiority in galactic history. But it was not Sang-woo who took the Earth chair. Instead, a woman in an elegant uniform that combined diplomatic and military elements walked to the center of the chamber. Director Minji of the newly formed Human Galactic Authority carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who represented absolute power. "Delegates of the former Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly throughout the vast chamber. "I am Director Minji, and I speak for the unified government of humanity. The crisis that brought us together has ended, but the underlying problems that allowed such a crisis to develop remain unresolved." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's political and military structure. The image was not flattering to the Council's traditional way of doing things. For over 3 centuries, this council has operated on the principle that all voices should be heard and all opinions should be considered before any action is taken. This approach works well for trade disputes and boundary negotiations. It fails completely when facing existential threats. Ambassador Tae-jin stood up from his seat. "Director Minji, we are grateful for humanity's assistance in defeating the Scar, but surely you cannot expect us to abandon 300 years of democratic tradition simply because our response was not as rapid as you would have preferred." Minji's expression remained calm, but her next words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Ambassador Tae-jin, in the past month, how many council worlds were completely destroyed while committees debated response strategies? How many billions of beings died while subcommittees formed study groups to analyze the threat?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the numbers, and they were horrifying. Entire civilizations had been wiped out, while the council's bureaucratic machinery slowly ground through the decision-making process. Humanity spent 23 years watching this galaxy and learning from its mistakes. Minji continued. "We saw how the current system consistently fails to address serious problems until they become catastrophic crises. We decided that we would not allow our species or our allies to fall victim to political paralysis." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed humanity's proposed restructuring of galactic governance. The changes were comprehensive and fundamental. The traditional council will continue to exist for matters of trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. But all issues related to galactic security will be handled by a new organization, the Galactic Defense Authority, under permanent human leadership. The proposal sparked immediate protest from delegates throughout the chamber. Species that had enjoyed equal voting rights for centuries suddenly found themselves facing a future where humanity held ultimate authority over military matters. Counselor Kyung-soo of the Altarian Republic voiced the concerns that many delegates shared. Director Minji, what you propose is not governance by consent but rule by superior force. How can we be certain that humanity will use this power responsibly? Minji's response was both reassuring and terrifying. You can be certain because we have already demonstrated our capabilities and our restraint. We could have conquered this galaxy at any time during the past 2 decades. Instead, we chose to remain hidden and watch. We revealed ourselves only when faced with a threat that your existing systems could not handle. Director Hyojin appeared on the chamber's communication screens, broadcasting from Earth's intelligence headquarters. Her presentation showed the true scope of humanity's intelligence network throughout the galaxy. Every major military installation, every significant industrial facility, every important government building and council space has been under human observation for years, she revealed. We know the location of your strategic resources, the capabilities of your defense systems, and the loyalty patterns of your military commanders. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been in position to conquer the galaxy at any time, but had chosen not to do so. They were offering partnership instead of conquest, but only on terms that recognized their superior position. Ambassador So Young asked the question that everyone was thinking but afraid to voice. What happens to species that refuse to accept the new arrangement? Minji's answer was delivered with diplomatic politeness, but its meaning was unmistakable. Species that choose not to participate in the Galactic Defense Authority will be free to handle their own security matters. They will also be free to face future threats without human assistance. The vote on humanity's proposal was not really a vote at all. It was a choice between accepting human protection under human terms or facing an uncertain future alone. Given what had just happened to the Scar, the decision was obvious even if it was difficult. One by one, species after species voted to accept the new galactic order. Some did so enthusiastically, grateful for the protection that human military might provide. Others voted reluctantly, recognizing that they had no realistic alternative. When the final tally was announced, 46 of the 47 council species had agreed to join the new system. Only the proud Zephyrian collective chose to maintain complete independence, preferring to rely on their own defenses rather than submit to human authority. As the session ended and delegates began to leave the chamber, Ambassador Taejin approached Director Minji with a final question. Director, I must ask, how long has humanity been planning this restructuring? Was the Scar crisis simply a convenient opportunity to implement changes you had already decided were necessary? Minji's smile was enigmatic. Ambassador, humanity learned long ago that the most successful plans are the ones that can adapt to changing circumstances. We prepared for many different scenarios. The Scar invasion was one of them. She paused and looked around the nearly empty chamber, her gaze finally settling on the blue metal chair that had sat empty for over 2 decades. The galaxy needed to learn that silence does not mean weakness, and that the most dangerous civilizations are sometimes the ones that choose to watch and wait, rather than speak and act. We are no longer watching. We are no longer waiting. The age of human patience has ended, and the age of human leadership has begun. 6 months later, the galaxy had settled into its new reality. Trade flourished under the protection of human military might. Scientific research advanced rapidly with access to human technology. Pirates and raiders had virtually disappeared, unwilling to test their luck against Earth Defense Force patrols. The empty chair in what was now called the Galactic Cooperation Chamber was occupied by Coordinator Li Jin, humanity's first representative to the traditional council. But the real power in the galaxy resided in the new Security Council, where human officials made decisions about threats and responses without the delays of democratic debate. Some species grumbled about their loss of political independence. Others worried about the long-term implications of human dominance. The Galactic Council convened in what everyone knew would be their final emergency session. Scar forces were now only days away from the core worlds, Evacuation ships filled with refugees clogged the space lanes as entire civilizations fled toward the galactic rim. The mood in the great chamber of Harmony's Edge was one of resigned despair. Ambassador So Young had delivered humanity's response 3 days earlier. The terms were harsh but simple: complete military autonomy for Earth forces, immediate restructuring of Council decision-making processes, and permanent seats on a new Galactic Security Committee for human representatives. Many species had refused to accept such demands from a supposedly primitive world. They preferred to face extinction with their political dignity intact rather than submit to human authority. Admiral Ji-Wan stood at the tactical display in the center of the chamber, pointing to the red markers that showed scar positions. Her remaining ships were spread thin across dozens of systems, preparing for desperate last stands against overwhelming odds. "The Devourer fleets will reach Harmony's Edge within 72 hours, she reported to the assembled delegates. "Our defensive lines are collapsing on all fronts. I estimate we have perhaps 6 hours of combat effectiveness remaining before organized resistance becomes impossible." Chancellor Vextar looked older than his 3 centuries of age. The weight of leading the galaxy through its darkest hour had bent his normally straight posture. "Are there any other options we have not considered?" "None that do not involve accepting Earth's conditions," Admiral Ji-Wan replied honestly. "And we may have waited too long even for that. How can human forces reach our defensive positions in time to make a difference?" Her question was answered by her own sensor officer, Lieutenant Quan Ho, who had been monitoring long-range detection systems during the meeting. His voice was filled with confusion and disbelief. "Admiral, I'm reading massive spatial distortions throughout Council space. Ships are appearing on sensors in positions where nothing was detected moments ago." The holographic display updated to show something that made every being in the chamber gasp in shock. Thousands of green markers were materializing across the galaxy, perfectly positioned to intercept advancing scar forces. The vessels appeared simultaneously in dozens of star systems with coordination that seemed impossible. Admiral Ji-Wan stared at her tactical display with growing amazement. "These energy signatures? They're unlike anything in our database. How many ships are we detecting?" Lieutenant Quan Ho checked his readings multiple times before answering. "Admiral, current count shows approximately 1,000 vessels of various sizes, all appearing to be of human origin based on their quantum signatures. In the Altair system, Captain Wu Jin commanded the Earth battleship Sol's Defender as it decloaked along with 50 sister vessels. His ship was a masterpiece of human engineering. 2 kilometers of sleek hull covered in adaptive armor that shifted and changed like living skin. Weapons that seemed to bend space itself bristled from every surface. The Scar Devourer, ships that had been advancing on the Altarian homeworld, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they had never encountered. The human vessels moved with fluid grace that made the biomechanical aliens seem clumsy by comparison. Communications Officer Ye Jin opened channels on all galactic frequencies. Her voice was calm and professional as she delivered humanity's first official military communication to the galaxy. "This is Captain Wu Jin of the Earth Defense Force battleship Sol's Defender. By order of the Human Colonial Authority, all SCAR forces in this system will cease hostile actions immediately and withdraw to your home territory. You have 60 seconds to comply. Before we demonstrate why silence was our greatest weapon." The response from the lead Devourer ship was a burst of the same purple energy that had devastated Council forces for months. The beam struck Sol's Defender amidships and simply disappeared. The human vessel's adaptive armor didn't just absorb the attack, it seemed to feed on it, glowing brighter as the alien weapon struck. Wu Jin's reply was swift and devastating. His ship's primary weapon was something the galaxy had never seen, a gravitational lance that collapsed space-time in a focused beam. The Scar vessel twisted and crumpled as reality itself bent around it. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human forces engaged the Scar invasion fleets. In every system, the results were the same. Weapons that had seemed invincible against Council technology proved useless against human defenses designed specifically to counter biomechanical advantages. Back on Harmony's Edge, the assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as their sensors showed the systematic destruction of the Scar advance. Ambassador Tae-Jin was the first to find his voice. "How is this possible? Where did all these ships come from?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Hoseok, The junior intelligence analyst who had been tracking mysterious energy readings for years was finally allowed to present his findings to the full council. "Honored delegates," he said nervously, "for the past 5 years I have been detecting evidence of a massive construction program in Earth's solar system. The energy signatures suggested industrial activity on a scale far beyond anything we believed humans possessed." He activated his own holographic display, showing years of data that had been dismissed as natural phenomena. What we thought were solar flares were actually the energy signatures of shipyard fusion reactors. What we assumed was cosmic radiation was the exhaust from test flights of new vessel types. The humans have been building the largest military force in galactic history right under our noses. Admiral G1 studied the tactical display with professional admiration and growing fear. "The positioning is perfect. Every human ship is exactly where it needs to be to maximize damage to Scar forces, while minimizing risk to Council worlds. This level of coordination requires intelligence gathering on an unprecedented scale." Director He Jin of Human Colonial Intelligence appeared on the chamber's main communication screen, broadcasting from Earth. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. When she spoke, her words carried the authority of someone who had spent decades planning for this moment. "Members of the Galactic Council, this is Director He Jin of Earth's Intelligence Services. For 23 years, we have been monitoring your communications, studying your military capabilities, and analyzing your political weaknesses. We know every ship in your fleets, every resource in your treasuries, and every secret in your government files." The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Species that had considered themselves secure in their home systems suddenly realized they had been completely transparent to human observation. "We know that the Rigel Confederation has been secretly developing quantum torpedoes in violation of arms control treaties," He Jin continued. "We know that the Zephyrian Collective has hidden mining operations in the Forbidden Zone. We know that 3 council members have been conducting unauthorized diplomatic negotiations with Scar representatives." The last statement caused several ambassadors to look around nervously. The humans apparently knew about diplomatic contacts that even the council leadership had not been informed about. "The question now," Director He Jin said, "is whether the galaxy is ready to accept a new reality. The days of inefficient committee governance are over. Earth will not allow another existential threat to develop, while politicians debate and bureaucrats form study groups." Fleet Admiral Young-Su's voice came over the communication channels from his flagship Incheon Rising. His tone was calm but carried the unmistakable authority of absolute military superiority. "The Scar hegemony is being systematically dismantled as we speak. Their biomechanical advantages are useless against weapons designed specifically to counter adaptive technology. Within 72 hours, their military force will cease to exist as an organized threat." On his command bridge, Young-Su watched as human task forces completed their coordinated assault on Scar positions throughout the galaxy. Each enemy stronghold fell with mechanical precision, destroyed by weapons that seemed to anticipate and counter every defensive measure. The quantum torpedoes phased through adaptive armor as if it didn't exist. Neural disruptors shut down the collective consciousness links that coordinated Scar forces. Gravity wells trapped entire fleets in localized space-time distortions that made escape impossible. Most devastating of all were the nanite swarms that converted Scar biomechanical technology against itself. The same adaptive capabilities that made Devourer ships so dangerous became weaknesses when human nanites reprogrammed their biological components. As reports of victory came in from across the galaxy, the council chamber fell silent. The crisis that had threatened to destroy galactic civilization had been solved in a matter of hours by a species that most delegates had considered primitive and irrelevant. Ambassador So Young stood slowly, her voice carrying a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. "Director He Jin, Fleet Admiral Young-Su, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you for saving our civilization. But I must ask, what happens now? What does Earth want from us?" The answer would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power, diplomacy, and the price of survival. The humans had revealed theirs. The meeting place appeared out of nowhere. One moment, the olive branch was floating in empty space near Earth's moon. The next moment, a massive structure materialized around them like a growing crystal of metal and light. Ambassador So Young stared through the viewing port at the impossible sight. The space station was larger than anything she had ever seen, bigger even than Harmony's Edge. Its design was sleek and elegant, with flowing curves that seemed to bend light around them. Most amazingly, it had been completely invisible until the humans chose to reveal it. "Stealth technology," whispered Dr. Nam Wook in amazement. "They can hide entire space stations from our most advanced sensors." The level of scientific achievement this represents is staggering. Captain Junho of the Earth Defense Command watched the alien ship from Luna Station Alpha, one of humanity's hidden military installations built inside the moon itself. His orders were clear but complex. Maintain operational security while gathering as much intelligence as possible about galactic military capabilities. For over 20 years, humanity had been watching and listening. Every radio transmission between Council worlds, every military report, every diplomatic message had been intercepted and analyzed. Earth knew more about the galactic situation than most Council members themselves. "Sir, the alien ship is requesting permission to dock," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Hyojin. Junho nodded. "Grant permission. Direct them to Docking Bay 7, and make sure our guests receive full diplomatic honors. This is humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Let's make sure we do it right." The docking process was smooth and professional, guided by systems that made Council technology look primitive by comparison. As So Young and her small team stepped off their ship, they were greeted by humans in elegant uniforms that combined military precision with diplomatic style. Director Sang-woo of Earth's External Affairs Division was waiting for them in the reception area. He was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair, but So Young could see the sharp intelligence behind his welcoming smile. When he spoke, his galactic standard was perfect and unaccented. "Ambassador So Young, welcome to humanity's first official diplomatic facility. I am Director Sang-woo, and I will be handling our negotiations. I trust your journey was comfortable." So Young tried to hide her shock at how much the human already knew. "Director Sang-woo, I must admit I am surprised by the level of preparation you have made for our visit. We were not certain Earth had received any of our previous diplomatic communications." Sang-woo's smile became slightly mysterious. "Oh, we received them. All of them. In fact, we have been monitoring galactic affairs quite closely for several decades. Please let us move to more comfortable surroundings where we can discuss the situation properly." The conference room was a masterpiece of design and technology. The walls showed real-time images of space around Earth, including views of the hidden defensive installations that surrounded the planet. The message was subtle but clear. Humanity was far from defenseless. As they took their seats around a table made of some unknown blue-green material, So Young decided to be completely honest about the galaxy's desperate situation. "Director Sang-woo, our civilization faces complete extinction from the Scar hegemony. Their biomechanical forces have already consumed multiple star systems, and our military cannot stop them. We have come to ask if humanity would consider joining our defensive alliance." Sang-woo listened carefully, occasionally asking questions that showed he already knew far more about the Scar threat than should have been possible. When So Young finished her presentation, he was quiet for several minutes. "Ambassador, your situation is indeed serious. The Scar represent exactly the kind of existential threat that we have been preparing to face. But before we discuss potential military cooperation, I need to explain some things about humanity's position." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from Earth's perspective. Red markers indicated Scar forces, blue markers showed Council military positions, and green markers revealed something that made So Young gasp in shock. There were thousands of green markers scattered throughout galactic space. Each one represented a hidden human observation post or intelligence station. "For the past 23 years, Sang-woo continued, humanity has been conducting what we call the Great Survey. We have placed monitoring stations in every major star system, intercepted virtually all galactic communications, and studied every species in the Council." So Young felt her understanding of the galaxy shifting beneath her feet. "You mean Earth has been spying on all of us? For over 2 decades? Spying is such an unpleasant word," Sang-woo replied with a slight smile. "We prefer to think of it as cautious observation. You see, Ambassador, humanity learned some hard lessons from our own history. When different civilizations meet for the first time, the results are often tragic for the weaker side. We decided to make sure we understood the galactic situation thoroughly before revealing ourselves. Dr. Namwook spoke up for the first time. But why did you avoid all contact? Surely peaceful cooperation would have been better than isolation? Sang Woo's expression became more serious. Doctor, in the past 23 years, how many major conflicts has the Galactic Council successfully prevented? How many times has the Council's bureaucratic structure allowed small problems to become large ones? How many species have suffered while committees debated and subcommittees formed study groups? The questions were uncomfortable because the answers were embarrassing. The Council's track record for quick, effective action was poor at best. We watched the galaxy's political structure and concluded that it was fundamentally flawed. Sang Woo continued. Too much talk, not enough action. Too much focus on maintaining the status quo. Not enough preparation for real threats. The Scar crisis proves our assessment was correct. So Young leaned forward urgently. Then you will help us? Humanity has military capabilities that could make a difference? That depends, Sang Woo replied carefully, on whether the galactic community is willing to accept certain conditions. Humanity has spent considerable resources preparing for exactly this kind of crisis. We didn't do that so we could hand control over to the same inefficient system that allowed the threat to develop in the first place. The negotiations continued for hours. Sang Woo revealed that humanity had been developing defensive technologies, specifically designed to counter biomechanical threats like the Scar. But he made it clear that any human military intervention would come with significant political conditions. We will not place our forces under Council command, he stated firmly. We will not submit our strategic plans to committee approval, and we will not allow bureaucratic delays to interfere with military necessity. As the meeting progressed, So Young began to understand that humanity wasn't just offering to help with the current crisis. They were proposing a complete restructuring of how the galaxy handled security threats. You're talking about changing the fundamental nature of the Galactic Council, she said. Yes, Sang Woo admitted. The current system has proven inadequate for dealing with existential threats. If the galaxy wants humanity's protection, it must accept that some things are more important than political comfort. The session ended with no firm agreements, but both sides had learned important things. So Young now understood that Earth was not a primitive world seeking to join galactic civilization. Instead, it was an advanced power that had been carefully studying that civilization and found it lacking. Sang Woo had gathered valuable intelligence about the Council's desperation and political divisions. He now knew exactly how much leverage humanity possessed in the upcoming negotiations. As the Olive Branch prepared to return to Council space with humanity's preliminary response, So Young realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways that no one had anticipated. The question was whether the change would come through cooperation or through the more direct methods that humans seemed prepared to employ. Behind his diplomatic smile, Sang Woo was already thinking several moves ahead. The time for watching and waiting was almost over. Soon the galaxy would discover what humanity had been building during their decades of silence. The empty chair in the council chamber would not remain empty much longer. The news from the Outer Rim grew worse each day. Scar Devourer ships had consumed 3 entire star systems in less than a month. Refugee ships arrived at Council space stations carrying survivors with horrible stories. Entire worlds stripped of their resources. Populations absorbed into the Scar collective consciousness. Cities that had stood for thousands of years reduced to empty metal husks. Councillor Kyung-soo of the Altarian Republic stood before the emergency assembly with a proposal that shocked everyone present. His people were known for their careful diplomatic approach to problems. They preferred to study issues for months or years before making any major decisions, but the Scar crisis had changed everything. Fellow beings, Kyung-soo said, his usually calm voice filled with urgency. We have exhausted all conventional options. Our military forces are losing ground despite their courage and skill. Our weapons cannot penetrate Scar adaptive armor. Our ships cannot match their speed or maneuverability. He paused and looked around the great chamber, making eye contact with as many ambassadors as possible. I propose we send a formal diplomatic mission to Earth. We must ask the humans for military assistance. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species saw humans as potentially dangerous primitives. Others argued that any help was better than facing extinction. The discussion went on for hours, with voices raised in anger and fear. Ambassador So Young of the Centauri Trade Federation listened to the arguments with growing determination. Her people were merchants and explorers who had traveled to every corner of the galaxy. She had studied Earth from a distance for many years, fascinated by the mysterious silent world. "I volunteer to lead the diplomatic mission," she announced during a brief pause in the debate. Chancellor Vextar looked at her with surprise. "Ambassador So Young, you understand this mission is extremely dangerous. We know almost nothing about current human capabilities or intentions. They might respond to unexpected visitors with hostility." So Young nodded. "I understand the risks, but if we do nothing, we will all be consumed by the scar within months. At least this offers hope." The vote was close, but the proposal passed. So Young was given command of the courier ship Olive Branch, one of the fastest vessels in the Council fleet. Her crew consisted of only essential personnel: a pilot, a communication specialist, and a cultural expert who had studied the limited information available about human society. As the Olive Branch prepared for departure, Admiral Jiwan received devastating news from the front lines. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula had been a complete disaster. She had sent her best ships and most experienced commanders to stop a Scar advance fleet. Less than half of her vessels had returned. Captain Insu, one of the few survivors, reported to her via emergency transmission. His ship, the Stellar Defender, was heavily damaged and limping back to the nearest repair station. "Admiral, their new weapons are beyond anything we've encountered," he said, his voice filled with exhaustion and despair. "They deployed something they called gravity hammers, devices that collapse our shield generators by creating localized gravitational fields. Our ships were crushed like tin cans. Even worse were reports of quantum viruses, programs that could take control of captured ships and turn them against their former allies. The Scar had used these weapons to convert several Council vessels into additional devourers during the battle. They're not just defeating us," Captain Insu continued. "They're learning from every encounter. Their biomechanical technology adapts to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones." Meanwhile, communications specialist Yunjai was working the late shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station near the Galactic Core. Her job was to listen for distress signals and coordinate rescue operations across Council space. It was usually quiet work, but the Scar crisis had made every shift busy and stressful. Tonight was different. Her sensitive equipment was picking up strange transmissions from the direction of Earth's solar system. The signals were far too sophisticated for the primitive radio technology that humans supposedly possessed. They were quantum encrypted and used frequency patterns that didn't match any known galactic communication protocols. Yunjay tried to decode the signals using every method she knew, but the encryption was beyond anything in the Council database. The messages seemed to be going to multiple destinations throughout the galaxy, but she couldn't determine what they said or who was sending them. She reported the discovery to her supervisor, but like Hosiok's earlier findings, her observations were dismissed as equipment malfunction or natural phenomena. As the Olive Branch traveled toward Earth, So Young studied everything known about human culture and history. The information was limited and often contradictory. Early radio transmissions suggested a violent, warlike species that fought constantly among themselves. But they had also created beautiful art, music, and literature. More puzzling were the technical achievements that had been detected over the years. Nuclear power, spaceflight, and advanced computers had all been developed remarkably quickly by galactic standards. Most species took thousands of years to advance from primitive agriculture to space technology. Humans had done it in only a few centuries. Her pilot, Tae Young, was nervous about approaching an unknown world without invitation. "Ambassador, what if they shoot first and ask questions later? Their early broadcasts showed they have nuclear weapons and aren't afraid to use them." So Young had wondered the same thing many times during the journey. "We'll approach slowly and broadcast peaceful intentions on all frequencies. If they are truly intelligent, they will understand that we come seeking help, not to cause harm." The ship's cultural expert, Dr. Nam Wook, had spent years studying the fragments of human culture that had leaked into space via radio and television signals. He had theories about human psychology and social structure, but admitted that much of his knowledge was guesswork. "From what I can determine, humans seem to respond well to direct, honest communication," he said. "They appear to value bravery and are willing to help others who are in genuine need. But they also seem suspicious of hidden motives or political manipulation." As they drew closer to Earth's solar system, The olive branch's sensors began detecting things that shouldn't exist. Advanced warning buoys that demanded identification in perfect galactic standard. Defensive satellites that tracked their movement with targeting systems more sophisticated than anything in the Council's arsenal. "This is impossible," whispered Tae-young as he stared at his sensor readings. "The humans are supposed to be primitive. How do they have technology that's more advanced than ours?" So-young felt her heart rate increase as she realized they were approaching a civilization that was nothing like what the galaxy believed. Earth wasn't a primitive backwater world. It was something much more sophisticated and potentially dangerous. "Slow to minimum speed and begin broadcasting our peaceful intentions on all frequencies," she ordered. "And prepare for anything. It seems we know much less about humanity than we thought." The response came faster than expected. A calm, professional voice speaking perfect galactic standard with no trace of accent or hesitation. "Unknown vessel. This is Earth Traffic Control. You are entering restricted space without authorization. State your identity and purpose immediately, or you will be escorted away by security forces." So-young took a deep breath and activated the communication system. The next few minutes would determine whether the galaxy's last hope for survival would listen to their desperate plea for help. "Earth Traffic Control. This is Ambassador So-young of the Galactic Council, aboard the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch. We request permission to approach for urgent negotiations regarding a threat to all intelligent life in this galaxy." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. When the response came, it changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about the mysterious blue world and its inhabitants. "Ambassador So-young, your request has been received and is being processed. Please maintain your current position while arrangements are made for a formal first contact meeting. Welcome to the Sol system." 3 months after the last council meeting, emergency alarms rang throughout Harmony's Edge. The peaceful sounds of daily life on the great station were replaced by urgent announcements calling all ambassadors to an immediate session. Something terrible was happening in the outer regions of galactic space. The Scar hegemony had begun their expansion. For generations, they had remained in their home systems, building strange biomechanical ships that looked more like living creatures than traditional spacecraft. Their vessels, called Devourers, were dark and twisted things that seemed to grow rather than being built in shipyards. Ambassador Minho of the peaceful Lyrian Collective stood before the emergency council session with fear in his large, gentle eyes. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their love of art, music, and philosophy. They had never built weapons of war believing that intelligence and kindness could solve any problem. "Honored friends," Minho said, his voice shaking with emotion. "3 of our outer colonies have gone completely silent. Our last communication from the Lyrian 7 system showed Scar ships approaching our peaceful research stations. When we tried to contact them again, we heard only empty space. The holographic display in the center of the council chamber showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared wherever Scar forces had been detected. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The hegemony was expanding in all directions from their home territory, consuming everything in their path. Admiral Ji-won of the United Defense Fleet studied the tactical information with growing alarm. She was the experienced military commander whose people, the Rigel Confederation, had helped keep peace in the galaxy for over a century. Her silver uniform was covered with medals from dozens of successful peacekeeping missions. But this was different from anything she had faced before. The United Defense Fleet was designed to stop small conflicts between neighboring species or chase away pirates who attacked merchant ships. They had never prepared for a full-scale invasion by a hostile empire. "How many ships do we estimate the Scar possess?" asked Chancellor Vextar. Admiral Ji-won looked at her datapad with a grim expression. "Our intelligence suggests they have at least 5,000 Devourer-class vessels. Each ship appears to be over 2 kilometers long and heavily armed with weapons we do not fully understand." A worried murmur spread through the council chamber. The United Defense Fleet had fewer than 800 ships spread across the entire galaxy. Most of them were small patrol vessels designed for police work, not military combat. Captain Do-hyun commanded one of those patrol ships, the fast frigate called Swift Justice. His vessel was currently stationed near the Kepler Nebula, investigating reports of unusual activity in the area. Do-hyun was young for a ship commander, but he had earned his position through skill and courage in several dangerous missions. His crew was scanning the nebula for signs of Scar scouts when their sensors detected multiple contacts approaching at high speed. Do Hyun ordered his ship to general quarters as 6 devourer ships emerged from the swirling gases of the nebula. The enemy vessels looked like enormous insects made of dark metal and pulsing organic material. Their hulls seemed to shift and change shape as Do Hyun watched. Strange lights flickered along their surfaces like the patterns on a poisonous snake. All stations prepare for combat, Do Hyun ordered. Communication, send an emergency message to fleet headquarters. Tell them we have encountered Scar forces in the Kepler system. The battle was brief and one-sided. The Swift Justice's energy weapons struck the nearest devourer ship, but the alien vessel's hull seemed to absorb the attack and grow stronger. The dark metal plating shifted and changed, becoming thicker where the weapons had hit it. The Scar ships responded with weapons that Do Hyun had never seen before. Purple energy beams cut through his ship's shields as if they did not exist. The beams seemed to disrupt the very atoms that made up the Swift Justice's hull, causing metal to decay and fall apart. "Hull breach on decks 4 and 5, shouted his engineering officer. "The energy weapons are causing our armor to break down at the molecular level." Do Hyun ordered a retreat, but the devourer ships were faster than they appeared. Their biomechanical engines seemed to bend space around them, allowing them to move in ways that defied normal physics. One of the alien ships extended long tentacle-like arms that grabbed onto the Swift Justice and began pulling it closer. Only quick thinking by his weapons officer saved them. A concentrated burst from all their missile launchers at once forced the Devourer to release its grip and fall back. Do Hyun used the opportunity to jump to faster-than-light speed and escape to the nearest council base. His report sent shockwaves through the Galactic Military Command. The Scar were not just numerous and aggressive. Their technology was far more advanced than anyone had realized. Meanwhile, on the ancient world of Kepler 442b, xenoarchaeologist Hye-won made a discovery that would have been important if anyone had been paying attention. She was studying ruins left behind by a civilization that had vanished thousands of years ago. The stone tablets she found contained writing in multiple languages, including some that seemed familiar. When she ran them through her translation computer, she found references to the Silent Guardians and ships that sleep among the stars. Most interesting were the passages that mentioned the Blue World's children and their 1,000 vessels of protection. The tablet spoke of a great alliance between the ancient civilization and mysterious visitors from a distant yellow star. Hye-won tried to contact her colleagues at the Galactic University to share her findings. But the emergency with the Scar invasion had everyone focused on military matters. Her discovery was filed away as interesting but not immediately important. Back at Harmony's Edge, the emergency council session continued for days. Species after species reported attacks on their outer colonies. The Scar advance seemed unstoppable, and their technology grew more advanced with each battle. The Devourers were not just warships. They were mobile factories that consumed asteroids, destroyed planets, and used the raw materials to build more of themselves. Every system they conquered made them stronger and more numerous. Admiral Ji-won presented her military assessment to the Council with barely controlled despair. The current rate of expansion suggests the Scar will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Our conventional forces cannot stop them. We need new strategies, new weapons, or new allies. What about Earth? Asked Ambassador Tae-jin suddenly. They are an intelligent species with advanced technology. Surely they could help us. The suggestion caused debate throughout the chamber. Many species remembered humanity's violent history from their early radio broadcasts. Wars, weapons, and conflicts seemed to be constant themes in human culture. The humans appeared to be primitive and violent, said Ambassador Kornin. Even if we could contact them, they might be more dangerous than helpful. But others disagreed. Any help is better than facing extinction, argued Ambassador Yel-Anna. If the humans have any military capability at all, we should ask for their assistance. Chancellor Vextar called for order in the chamber. The question of human contact is important, but first we must focus on immediate defense. Admiral Ji-won, begin preparations for the defense of our core systems. If anyone wishes to volunteer for a diplomatic mission to Earth, they may submit their names for consideration. As the session ended, Ho Seok continued his lonely work monitoring deep space communications. The energy readings from Earth's solar system were becoming stronger and more frequent. The patterns were so regular that they seemed almost like coded messages, but he could not break the encryption. What he did not know was that humanity had been listening to every word spoken in the council chambers. Hidden sensors placed throughout the galaxy were feeding information back to Earth, where military planners were carefully studying the Scar threat and preparing their own response. The galaxy's greatest crisis was approaching, but its potential saviors remained silent and unknown. Soon that would change in ways no one could imagine. The great space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness between stars. Its massive halls could hold thousands of beings from across the galaxy. Today, like every 3 months for the past 23 years, representatives from 47 different worlds gathered for the Galactic Council meeting. Ambassador Tae-Jin walked through the curved corridors, his blue skin reflecting the soft lights above. As a member of the Velkari people, he had attended these meetings for over a decade. His 4 eyes scanned the familiar faces of other diplomats, but one thing always caught his attention. In the great meeting hall, there was always one empty chair. The chair belonged to Earth, the small blue planet that orbited a yellow star in what the galaxy called Sector 7. For 23 years, that chair had remained empty. No human had ever sat in it. No message had ever come from their world explaining why. Fleet Commander Subin stood near the large windows that looked out into space. Her people, the Andromedans, were tall and thin with silver skin that sparkled like starlight. She held a datapad that showed reports from across the galaxy. Her job was to keep track of military movements and threats. But when it came to Earth, her reports were always the same. Complete silence. Still nothing from the humans, she said to her assistant, a young officer named Jun Ki. Our long-range sensors show their planet is still there. Cities with lights at night, ships moving in their oceans. But they never answer our calls. Jun Ki looked at the data with confusion. Commander, why do we still invite them to these meetings? They have never come. They have never even sent a message saying they will not come. Subin touched her chin thoughtfully. The rules say every intelligent species gets a voice in the council. The humans proved they were intelligent when they split the atom and sent radio signals into space. That was over 100 years ago. But since we first contacted them 50 years ago, they have been completely silent. In the main meeting hall, the session began. The room was enormous, with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section with special air and lighting for their needs. Some breathed oxygen like humans were supposed to. Others needed methane or hydrogen. The technology kept everyone comfortable. At the center of the room stood Chancellor Vextar, an ancient being whose people had started the Galactic Council 300 years ago. His voice was deep and carried clearly to every corner of the hall. Welcome, friends from across our galaxy, he said. Today we discuss trade between the seedy and mining worlds and the Proximan merchants. There have been disputes about shipping costs and delivery times. Ambassador Tae-Jin listened to the boring details about space cargo and freight prices. His eyes kept drifting to the empty Earth chair. It was made of a blue metal that matched the color of their planet. The nameplate in front of it read, Earth, Homo sapiens in the common galactic language. During a break in the meeting, Tae-Jin spoke with other ambassadors about the missing humans. My scientists believe they may have destroyed themselves, said Ambassador Kornin of the Zephyrian Collective. His people looked like large insects with crystal wings. Species that develop nuclear weapons often use them on each other. Perhaps they simply do not wish to join us, suggested Ambassador Yelena of the Peaceful Worlds Union. She was short and round, with green fur covering her body. Some species prefer to stay alone on their home planets. But Hosiok, a young analyst who worked for Galactic Intelligence, had different thoughts. He was one of the few beings whose job was to study species that did not participate in council activities. His desk was in a small office far from the main meeting halls. Hosiok stared at his computer screen, reading the same reports he had been filing for 3 years. Every few months, automated monitoring stations near Earth's solar system detected strange energy readings. The readings were always dismissed as natural phenomena like solar flares or cosmic radiation. But Hosiok had noticed patterns in the data that others missed. The energy signatures appeared at regular intervals. They seemed to move through space in organized patterns. Most strangely, they sometimes appeared and disappeared as if something was turning them on and off. This is not natural, he said to himself, making notes on his datapad. Solar flares do not follow schedules. Cosmic radiation does not move in straight lines between planets. He took his concerns to his supervisor, Director Huan Ju, an older Andromedan with many years of experience in galactic intelligence. Huan Ju had 4 arms and could work on several tasks at once. Right now, he was signing papers with 2 hands while typing reports with the other 2. Director, I think we should pay more attention to these energy readings from the Sol system, Hosiok said, placing his datapad on the desk. Huan Ju glanced at the information quickly. Solar activity. Nothing unusual. File the standard report and move on to more important matters. The Scar hegemony has been expanding their territory again. That is where we need to focus our attention. Hosiok felt frustrated but did as he was told. He filed another report that would be stored in the vast galactic database and probably never read by anyone important. But he kept copies of all his data in a personal file. Something told him that one day the information might be important. Back in the main council session, the day's business continued. Votes were taken on new trade agreements. Disputes between neighboring species were discussed and referred to subcommittees for further study. Plans were made for joint scientific research projects. Through it all, the Earth chair remained empty. Most delegates had stopped noticing it years ago. It had become like a piece of furniture that was always there but served no purpose. As the meeting ended and beings from across the galaxy began to leave for their homeworlds, Ambassador Tae-jin took one last look at the empty chair. Something deep in his mind told him that the silence from Earth was not what it seemed, but he could not explain why he felt this way. The great station Harmony's edge grew quiet as the last ships departed. In a few months they would all gather again. The same debates would happen. The same votes would be taken, and the same blue metal chair would sit empty, waiting for humans who never came. In his small office, Hosiok continued to study his data late into the station's artificial night. The energy readings from Earth's region of space seemed to be getting stronger and more frequent. But nobody wanted to listen to a junior analyst's theories about a species that had been silent for over 20 years. If they had listened, they might have prepared for what was coming. But the galaxy was not ready to believe that the quiet blue planet held any secrets worth worrying about. The greatest mistake the Galactic Council ever made was thinking that silence meant weakness.